And just like that, it's now 2022. Just wanted to say Happy New Year to you guys. The channel's growing on a steady basis and I couldn't have done it without your support. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you for subscribing. On this channel, you can expect to see vlogs and installs regarding my 2018 Subaru WRX. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I hope to provide you guys with more content regarding the car. And of course, with the new year, I hope you guys achieved your goals from last year and I hope you continue to set new goals for this year. I'm still working on mine. I achieved a lot with the channel last year. I hit 1,000 subscribers, which was always a goal for me, and now we're continuing to grow. So my plan for 2022 is to keep working as hard as I can and to continue being passionate about making these videos, because at the end of the day, that's what keeps me fueled and that's what keeps me going. So hopefully you guys do the same. Without further ado, let's bring in the new year with this install. All right, so what we got here is the Nameless Performance Bypass Valve for the 2015 through 2021 Subaru WRX. Inside, pretty simple. It's just the bypass valve itself, and you get a little koozie, I guess, to keep your drinks cold. So out of the box, this valve right here is going to come loose, and I did reach out to Nameless Performance on this, and basically it comes loose so you can make your adjustments when you install this thing on the car. Other than that, it's a pretty simple design, pretty similar style to the OEM bypass valve, which I really like. I don't like overcomplicating anything. I know there's a lot of other ones out there, and there's a few reasons why I went with the Nameless Performance Bypass Valve, and one of which is that it uses a wave spring instead of a coil spring. And I did some research on the wave springs. I didn't know much about it. According to what I found, wave springs are more precise and more predictable when it comes to loading, and they are more superior than the coil springs. So based on that, it should eliminate a little bit of the restriction, and it should hold boost better than the OEM bypass valve. And another reason I went with Nameless Performance is because they are local to me. You might know them from their exhaust systems and axle backs and stuff like that, but this bypass valve has been around for a little while and I wanted to give it a shot. And also, I did a post on my YouTube channel. So I asked everyone who's running a bypass valve on the FA20 and what brand did you go with. A lot of folks say Boomba, Cobb came into second place, Perrin third, and other, I don't know what other could be. I'm sure there's a lot of other brands out there, but I named off the ones that I know about. And Nameless Performance came in last place with 7%. This is another main reason why I wanted to go with this one, is because not a lot of you prefer it. Again, you guys went with the Boomba, and so I wanted to try something different and go with a choice that's not as popular. That brings me to why I even bought a bypass valve to begin with. The stock one is just fine, but if you didn't see my video from a couple weeks ago, I recently installed the GrimmSpeed cast aluminum turbo inlet, and this thing alone gave the car some louder sounds from the cabin, and I wanted to see any other changes if I replaced the stock bypass valve with an aftermarket one. And no, it's not leaking or anything like that. I know a lot of people say that bypass valves are just a waste of money, but hey, if I can prevent the car from having any potential leaks, I'm all for it. The stock bypass valve is the only plastic piece left under here, and that's what we are going to be changing today. And please excuse all the dirt that's on the car right now. It's still on full winter mode. I still got the Blizzaks on there. I'm going to give it a few more weeks before I install the method wheels back on, and I have the front lip removed as well as the rear diffuser, since I didn't want to risk damaging anything. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing installed. I already got the car on the ramps with the jack stands and wheel chocks. Alright, so we're going to start off by removing the turbo inlet setup right here, since it is connected to the OEM bypass valve just up there. And to save time, I'm not going to go through each step on how to remove this setup right here, and I actually explained that already in my installation video of the GrimmSpeed aluminum turbo inlet, so I will link that in the description below so you guys can check it out and follow along. Let's go ahead and start by removing this entire setup right here. Alright, so we got the GrimmSpeed cast aluminum turbo inlet right here. and the stock bypass valve, which is held in by the coupler that GrimmSpeed provided. So don't mind all the tubes and all the wires and stuff like that. It just how it usually comes off when you remove your stock inlet. So like I mentioned, this stock bypass valve is the remaining plastic piece that's on this entire setup. And so I wanted to replace this today to reduce the chances of anything else leaking on the entire system. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we want to do is to remove this upper clamp right here. It's just above the coupler. And you just need a flathead screwdriver for that. All right, so once you got that loosened, you can go ahead and just pry it off, twist it, and then it should come right off. Just a side-by-side comparison. Like I said, I like the fact that this is pretty similar to the stock bypass valve. You're not gonna have to move anything or get any additional tubing or anything like that for this to work, since it is technically the same dimension, same size and everything. So now that we have them out, we can go ahead and lock this valve in place right here. I'm just copying the orientation of the stock one, so it's just facing straight up like that. And I'm just using a 5mm Allen key to tighten this. All right, so once you get this tightened, we can go ahead and put the bypass valve onto this coupler right here and just make sure it's facing the correct way. I have the opening of the bypass valve towards this side right here. Just make sure you don't get it mixed up. All right, and I just have the clamp as high up as I could get it. It's not touching the actual valve itself, but it's up there. And just remember before you install it to check all of the tubes and all the connections to make sure that none of them popped off from the boost controller solenoid right here when you removed it. If that's all good to go, then you can go ahead and install it. First things first, you want to connect the bypass valve to this charge pipe coupler right here. And then we'll make our way around and connect each tube. And it's not really too confusing just because the length of the tubes here is long enough to where you can tell where the connection is just by looking at it. Let's go ahead and connect it to the charge pipe coupler right here. And don't forget the clamp we removed from the first step. Now I want to get this thing mounted before I tighten the coupler to the charge pipe, because it allows us to make these small adjustments if necessary. After that's mounted on there, you want to go ahead and connect the tubes. And like I said, you can tell, like this one for example goes to this valve right here on the bypass valve just because it's the closest one to there. It's not too confusing. And once the inlet is sitting kind of flush on the turbo on its own, go ahead and secure it on there. And we're just going to be using the two 10mm bolts that we removed. And you want to be very careful with this step. It's really easy to strip out your turbo right here. So I don't really suggest using power tools for this step. Okay, you want to just snug it on there. All right, so now that everything is mounted in place, you want to go ahead and tighten down the 7mm clamp onto the charge pipe that's holding in the bypass valve. After you get the bypass valve secured to the coupler, go ahead and reconnect the remaining tubes as well as the boost controller power supply right here. All right, so I got everything secured, and the last thing to do is to connect the intake coupler to the inlet right here. But before that, I'm gonna go ahead and zip tie everything, all the tubes and everything, so it's secure on there. Alright, so we got this thing fully installed, and as you can see, I used a bunch of zip ties just to hold in all the tubes and everything like that together, and then finally got the clamp on to the intake coupler. Yeah, I think we're ready to put the skid plate back on and then see how it sounds. Alright, so we got everything all buttoned down. I'm gonna go for a test drive. I'll do a little bit of a sound clip for you guys, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I will do an in-depth review / sound clips on a separate video. Hopefully you guys don't hear the rain too much, but I'm just driving around the neighborhood and I can literally hear it it's a lot louder, and I'm barely giving it any gas. So I'm gonna do a couple pulls and then we're gonna head back. Also just letting the car warm up to temp before I do any pulls. But yeah, that was just a little bit of neighborhood driving, and just from me pushing it a little bit, it's I can already tell it's gonna be loud. All right, just a quick second gear pull and I'm gonna let off right away. At around 35 to 4,000 RPMs, you can hear it kind of winding up. And the whooshes are longer than they were when I had the stock bypass valve. Wow. It's there, I hear it. All right, here's a third gear pull from 3,000 RPMs. The weather's a little crappy, so I'm gonna go ahead and head home and then close out the video from there. Alright guys, we just got back home. Install is complete and we just went on that little drive. Like I mentioned, I will get some better sound clips. I plan on doing a follow-up video to this one of an in-depth review, and I want to document any changes that I noticed with the new bypass valve. And in order to do that, I definitely will need to spend some time driving the car, getting to know it again, since I did change a critical component of it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.